Watch this.
In their fight to move into their new building, Interfaith Sanctuary may be taking another hit thanks to potential rewrites in the city of Boise zoning code. Despite winter deciding to make a slight comeback, irrigation season is about to get underway, but drought conditions have some farmers getting ready to make the difficult choice to maybe cut back on production. Well, irrigation isn't the only season about to start. With fire season almost upon us, we're getting a glimpse of the power of wildfires through the lens of a former firefighter. All right, well, all this snow, rain, grapple, whatever we've been seeing lately, especially in the mountains, has certainly made a lot of people start to wonder if this summer will be as bad when it comes to the drought. Most of the state is in the midst of a severe drought right now for the second year in a row, so every drop does help. But it may still leave a lot to be desired, literally, for Idaho's ag operations who are still bracing for major water shortages and drought plans. Tomorrow marks the first day of irrigation season for the Nampa Meridian Irrigation District, which sends water through the Treasure Valley using canals, the major one being the Reidenbach Canal. And they will begin to see flowing water there at 2 a.m. tomorrow morning. This means farmers will soon be able to water their fields and their orchards. But how do things look from the irrigation district perspective? Joe Paris asked the question and got a complicated answer.
In the darkness of this Thursday morning, Treasure Valley water managers will begin sending water through canals and ditches to agriculture operations. The big question on the eve of irrigation, will there be enough water to power farming needs?
That's honestly something we're going day by day. As everybody's probably aware, you know, it's been in the news a lot. We thought in December we had it made, and then Mother Nature cut off our supply.
Greg Curtis is the water superintendent for the Nampa and Meridian Irrigation District. That district covers many areas in Ada and Canyon County. For months, Curtis and other water managers watched and hoped for improved drought conditions for 2022.
Yeah, we've been watching the supply all winter long and had concerns. And like everybody else, we kept thinking, oh, this next storm's coming, and then we didn't get much out of it. So it's been a challenging winter.
Curtis says you need to go back a few decades to find a dire drought situation like the valley is seeing now.
The last time something like this has happened, all of us have went back and looked at our records, and this really looks like 1992 all over again. From my standpoint, 91, we had a little bit of a shortened season, kind of similar to what we did last year. A typical good year, we will run till about October 15th, somewhere in there.
There are major concerns that the irrigation season will not make it that deep in the year because of the lack of water resources. As Curtis says, they can only send as much water as nature provides.
This year, we're not sitting as good as we were last year. And so in 1992, we went out in August. And I'm not saying, I don't want anybody to say Greg Curtis at Nampa Meridian said we're going to go out in August. We don't know. But that could be very well what happens. It just depends on how the demand is and where we end up.
Demand can be tough to gauge ahead of the season, but Curtis says there is encouraging conversations in the community about conservation.
Farmers have to do what they have to do to make it through. Some of them are using well water and whatever to get them through, and they have changed what they planted or chose not to grow some crops. But what I've really appreciated in all this dialogue, a lot of people have called up and said, you know, what can we do to make sure those farmers get more water?
If you've thought to yourself, can I personally make a difference on the water situation? Curtis has this insight.
This year is going to be really important for everybody to do their part, that if your lawn's doing fine, don't water. The biggest misconception out there is the water's in the ditch. If we don't use it, it's going to waste. And that could not be a more wrong statement. This water in this valley gets used over 5 times again and again and again.
The less water used, the more supply available, meaning water managers could extend the season on very valuable crops.
Sugar beets and corn and alfalfa, it takes the water it takes, especially if the heat turns up. If everybody else does their part, then we can extend this season and get them where they need to be, in at least into August.
And water managers are also reminding people to clear out their ditches and canals, as well as really to clear the right-of-way so the water teams can get in there and do any maintenance or any last-minute adjustments they need in the canals. That way, water can flow clearly. Now, safety is important too. Do not go into the canals and tell your kids they are dangerous too, because, well, they are very dangerous. And we have this whole conversation, Brian. A huge piece of it all is, of course, the farmers and the agriculture operations. And it's interesting. I spoke with one farmer today, and I've spoken with farmers at the State House really leading up to this water season, and really just in the halls at the State House, they chat about, oh, people in my community, they're really worried about water. We've already had to hear about them cutting back. Farmer I spoke with this evening, Brian, tells me that he's already cut back at least half of his corn planting, meaning he's losing half of the possible profits that he wanted to plant just because he's concerned there won't be enough water to make sure he can actually grow. So it's a major problem.
Because corn uses a lot of water. That's true. And I know that there's some people in this state, some farmers in different parts of the state would be thrilled with an August deadline when it comes to water, because their season may even be shorter. That's what he said about that water being used 5 times. I mean, it goes to Lake Lowell, right? And then it just and then they can reuse it there. Is that what I understand?
Yeah, and there's also, there's ability to have it recycled in other parts of the process. It's not a one-for-one replacement in the sense that everything that comes down the riding ball we're going to see again. But through different avenues and different ways, they are able to reuse the water, and they're able to purify it. And as you mentioned, it ends up at Lake Lowell. And there's a lot of options to really what to do with the water. The problem is, how much are we going to have?
Exactly. All right. Hopefully what we get now will help a couple months from now. Thanks, Joe. The ongoing dispute between Interfaith Sanctuary and those opposed to the shelter's proposed move to State Street, well, that continues. Boise City Council is gearing up to hear Interfaith's appeal. That's coming up next week. After Planning and Zoning, the commission denied their application for a conditional use permit. That's what they need in order to operate as a shelter on West State Street. While all of this has been going on, the city has also been looking at revising their zoning code with a new line in it that would say, no shelter shall be within 300 feet of a residential zone. That would be a big thing, depending on where Interfaith ends up. What does it mean for Interfaith? Katya Stepovic has the story.
The city is currently undergoing a review, evaluation, and a rewrite of our existing zoning code. And we're deliberately moving through that process to make sure that all changes to the code reflect our community's long-term goals.
The city of Boise's current planning and zoning code dates back to 1966. So around this time last year, they started thinking about revamping it.
We're addressing a variety of things, ranging from what are allowed housing types to how do we use our mixed-use districts? How do we better prepare ourselves to support transit, open space protections, climate change? We're addressing a wide array of things.
To come up with revisions and a new zoning code, the city is working with a consulting firm called Clarion, based out of Denver. Among many recommendations from Clarion was the addition of a line stating that no shelter shall be within 300 feet of a residential zone, which means the old Salvation Army building on State Street, a no-go.
There are concerns from homeowners that we did hear about what goes near homes.
But the caveat, the new revisions and recommendations probably won't be submitted to Boise City Council for a vote until early 2023, which means Interfaith is off the hook, at least for now.
If we had to start the process again and it put us into 2023, we would have a very challenging time of finding an appropriate shelter space.
So if Interfaith's appeal is denied by the city council and they decided to resubmit an application for the same building on State Street in 2023, the application would be tossed and the process of finding a new home would start all over again.
If I had only the options of this potential addition or our current code, certainly this potential addition is better.
While Katie Decker, president of Veterans Park Neighborhood Association, sees this part of the recommended code as a step in the right direction, she says it's not enough.
I think that you could advocate for other changes to the code, such as allowing very small shelters adjacent to residential areas, or including an even larger buffer for very large shelters of over 200 people.
She says even with Boise's current code, there is still something that Interfaith doesn't check off the list, which she believes was part of why Planning and Zoning shot down their request for a permit.
There isn't anything on record demonstrating sufficient evidence that the project wouldn't impact the surrounding areas. And that's a bar that they have to pass in our current code.
While those opposed feel the city is now listening to concerned citizens, Jody worries what this could mean for the future of shelters in Idaho.
Well, it wouldn't make most shelters anywhere possible because of how you want to locate a shelter. Certainly not in the middle of nowhere. You want there to be access to resources and to be on a transportation line and things like that. So it's really dangerous zoning if you are a city that wants to be able to take care of people who are unhoused.
But the city wants the community to know the drafts of city code are only recommendations, and they want to hear from you.
We're being as authentic as we can. We have created a draft, and we really want to revise the document based off of what Boise residents say. And that's why we're going through this process. We want to make sure that it meets the needs of our community into the future.
Now, the city of Boise has hosted a lot of neighborhood meetings and continues to do so on these revisions. We will link information for upcoming meetings and how people can submit public comment on our website, ktvb.com. Brian.
Yeah, this is interesting, and I was just asking about this. So if the city council approves Interfaith Sanctuary's plan next week, and then they go ahead and they change their code the following year, how does that affect Interfaith Sanctuary?
Like we talked about, they're grandfathered in until that 2023 mark when they approved any revisions. They're good to go. It's just a matter of time for them, really.
Okay, thank you very much, Katya. All right, the best part about campaign season is you can usually count on walking out to your mailbox. Well, it won't be for nothing. You're going to walk away with something. Political flyers, usually, like these right here. A whole bunch of them, a wide array of them. Look at this, our producer just got all of these in a matter of 3 days. And she's not alone. Crystal sent us this question. Every day my mailbox is full of unsolicited political flyers. I don't look at them and they go straight in the trash. Why isn't there a way to opt out of these flyers? It's a good question. Well, first, the short answer is, can you opt out of these flyers? Not really. Because here's how this works. When you register to vote, you fill out a form that has 10 boxes in it, basically, with all of your information. One of those is your address. The Secretary of State, in conjunction with county clerks, shall develop and implement a single uniform. This is what it all says there, right? That's kind of how this works. Per state code, that address gets compiled by your county clerk and then the Secretary of State's office into a centralized, interactive, computerized statewide system. That statewide system shall contain a list of names, registrations. That's how the code goes on, right? Any person desiring a copy of this statewide list of registered electors shall be furnished the same, it says, and the Secretary of State shall assess the individual amount which will compensate it. Further down, it says all that. Any person that wants it basically have to pay for it, but it is available. State code also says that list cannot be used for such things as advertising or products or service, or for a product or a service, or asking for money. However, the very last line of this code says that list may be used for any political purpose. So the answer is, can you opt out? Or the question is, can you opt out? The answer is state law says, no, you can't. But we did ask Idaho's GOP, and they said, should you want to be removed from any Republican mailing list, you can reach out to them directly, and they will do their best to pass that request along to individual Republican candidates. Okay, so how about text messages, what you get on your phone? You getting a lot of those lately? You ever wondered how they got your cell phone number? Well, if you registered to vote online with Idaho's website, there's an option to get notified by text, any changes that happen. And then doing that, you have to enter your cell phone number. So there's that way. And if you've ever put your cell phone on any consumer app or any sort of form, well, that's the other way. There's this thing called data sharing, and brokers can buy all kinds of information about you, including your cell phone number. So be prepared, well, to see a lot more of these in your mailbox over the next several weeks. It's a natural disaster you can get close to. That's how photographer Kari Greer describes the allure of shooting wildfires. And she got pretty close to a lot of them. All right, take a look at the screen and jot down this number, because now's the time to grab your phones and send us a text message, 208-321-5614. Send us a question, a comment, or both. Whatever you have to say, send it to us right now. Just make sure to include your name and the hashtag the 208. But be warned, what you share with us, we may share with others at the end of the show. We've all seen the effects of wildfires the last several years. The season has gotten longer. It starts earlier, it ends later. And even if we haven't had the major fires here in Idaho lately, we've sure had to experience the smoke funneling into Idaho from other states. And our air quality has been so bad for longer stretches of time. Just as we are about to embark on this year's fire season, there's a new exhibit at the Idaho State Museum that takes you inside the intensity of some of the major western wildfires over the last couple of decades, thanks to the camera work of photographer Kari Greer. Kari grew up in Coeur d'Alene and went to school to be a photographer, but she worked her college summers as a wildland firefighter. Kari started on a crew in 1994, and during those first few seasons, she would sneak some pictures, some time to snap a few pictures, because the images that she was seeing kept catching her photographer's eye. And by 1998, she'd made the seamless transition to full-time fire photographer. Kari's been as far as Florida, Georgia, South Dakota, Alaska, all of the western and southwestern states, she says. She put together 64 of her favorite pictures for this exhibit. Photojournalist Kevin Esslinger brings us a preview of Facing the Inferno, the wildfire photography of Kari Greer.
If you've never been on a fire, you've never been right up close to a fire, don't you find yourself being a little curious? What's that like? And so I just have this drive to tell the story, just to show it. And fire, I think it's so visceral, and I think it's so fundamental. It's a natural disaster that you can get close to, and it's amazing to see it. It's a privilege to be able to go get close. You can't see something like that and say, I don't need to take a picture of that. But I do take everything I can take, and what I've been surprised by is maybe something that I thought was a little mundane or not that cool turns out to be one of my favorite photographs. They're reflected in the pond here, but they must be on the bank right here, and the firelight is reflecting their silhouette on the pond. I love photographing the people, and I like to get to the point on the line where they forget I'm there, and I'm just doing my thing, fly on the wall, capturing what's going on, and showing what's taking place and telling that story. Having a line is how hotshots hike, and the boots and the dust coming up from the boots and the exertion on their faces. I think she's breathing hard. She's carrying a pretty heavy load with her line gear and a drip torch and her tool, and they're huffing. And I just think as a species, humans need to know. They want to know the unknown. And so if you can provide a window into that, it's just telling the story of what some of our fellow humans are doing out there that is somewhat unknown. Fire is dangerous. It's also a little bit unpredictable. Those unprecedented and kind of chaotic, unpredictable things, those I think make firefighters a bit nervous. This fire right here, those flame lengths are probably 350 feet tall. If you look at the height of the trees, we were standing probably 100 yards from the edge of that. And when it took off and began to run, it's called running crown fire, our Nomex blew back. It was like a blast wave in front. And we dropped down and had to lay on the ground, and I took pictures like this. It was crazy. It's amazing how fast it can just snap to life. That's a CL 415 Super Scooper. And they try to paint a wide area. So I tried to get in the right spot off the edge of the ridge, but they decided to widen it a little bit. It's trying to show you that fire is something that we coexist with, is going to affect all of us at some level, and that it can be embraced as a phenomena that is part of us.
Some amazing pictures there. You can see Kari's work along with excerpts from the author and essayist Stephen Pine, who's written nearly 24 books about wildfire. You can see all of that at the Idaho State Museum. Facing the Inferno is now open and runs through August 7th. Bogus Basin's winter season ended April 3rd. It was actually supposed to end a week later on April 10th, but they didn't have enough snow to make it that far. In fact, this is what it looked like on their last day during the 2022 closing day pond skim. You see lots of brown ground showing on some of those shots that kind of point toward there. They are right back there. A lot of brown ground showing in the background there. The snow that they are skiing on, all of that man-made, not Mother Nature made to make time for this event. After December, Mother Nature basically shut off the spigot. A supply chain issue with the manufacturer, if you will. Well, then this week happened. And the rest of Bogus's snow order, the one they've been clicking reorder since February, well, it was finally fulfilled. A truckload of snow being dropped off over the last 72 hours. More than 20 inches up there, they say. It's more snow than all of February and March combined. So they're calling it a supply chain Saturday because we all know how frustrating our supply chain issues have been. They're going to reopen Bogus Basin for one day. That would be this Saturday. One day, second season ender, front side only. Deer Point, Morningstar, and Coach chairlifts will be open from 9 to 4:30. The 2021-2022 season pass holders are welcome, but if you don't have one of those, lift tickets will be available and discounted, but they want you to buy them before you get up the hill. Delivery fulfilled then. That's great. And if your wish is to ski mid-April, well, then that wish is fulfilled as well. All right, final moments of the show. Let's get right to your comments. Why start the delivery of irrigation water now when the weather forecast shows more precipitation and low temperatures, asks Rick. Well, the snowpack in the mountains is good, as well as the cold temperatures to kind of keep it in place to delay the thaw. But it takes about a week and a half to fill that canal and get it to full capacity. So by a week and a half from now, We could be seeing temperatures in the 70s by that point and much needed irrigation. Boise can have halfway houses in the middle of residential subdivisions nobody knows about except for the neighbors, and now they want to change the zoning for shelters. I don't understand the difference, asked Kevin. I'm guessing it has to do with the number of people allowed in these houses, which is what this question is about, asking about firehouses. Why can't we just use that? You need a big space if you want to help like 200 people, and there is a big need right now with a lot of people who are homeless in Boise.